Hi there, and welcome to the BARA Roundtable webinar, where we're going to be discussing the need for end-of-line solutions and how that helps your business. First of all, I'd like to, I think we need to go through some codes of conduct on the day, which I'm hoping my technical whiz is going to put on the screen. Hooray! So just to let you know that we are indeed being recorded today. You're all on mute, so you can't butt in. When a panelist is ready to speak, please use the mute button to unmute yourself. And I'm aware that I may have to remind you of that, so don't worry. We obviously want you to contribute. So there is a question and answer button, and we will try and get through as many as possible. Apparently, we don't want you to post website URLs or company promotion in the chat box. We don't like that at all, and you'll be barred. We'll ask you to get out of our pub. Also, the Chatham House rules apply, so you can go to the bara.org.uk to look at the recording and also an accompanying press release, so which hopefully will have the salient points for you. Please wait until the session is ended by the host, and a short feedback survey will pop up so you can tell us how marvellous it's all been. Thanks very much. I'd like to now crack on with our panellists, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, who they are, what they do, and what their company does. And I'm going to start off with George Thompson.
Thank you very much. As you know, my name is George Thompson. I am the Robot System Sales Manager for EoL UK. I am also the current chairman of BARA. I've been playing around with robots for nearly 20 years now, so I hope I have a vague idea what I'm talking about at least. One of the things that I would like to get across today in particular is that there's a lot more to automation than just the robot and the heart of it, but we'll come on to that in a few minutes.
Thanks very much. And now I'm coming to Andrew Mason.
First technical issue. Hello. Yes, I'm Andrew Mason. I've been in engineering since leaving school, so 30 plus years. Started as an apprentice and then into production engineering, and then sort of moved into more sales roles. So I think I've seen sort of a bit of industry over the years. I was first elected onto the BARA Council back in 2013 and most recently re-elected last year. My day job, I work for a company called RAR UK Automation. So we're not integrators. We promote and sell overseas manufactured equipment. So this can be traditional robotics, cobots, AMRs, some palletizing solutions, so quite a range. And that's about it for me for now.
Thank you very much. Now let's move on to Dave Barone.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Barone. I work for a company called Leidos. Leidos are a Fortune 500 company. They're an American-based company, but they have a presence in a number of different countries. And in the UK, that is a general automation group and an energy group and a few other businesses as well. We work across, as Leidos, we work across 4 markets. We work in the civil space, defence, health and intelligence arenas, and pretty much across 10 sectors, really. Those include aviation and defence, energy, government, healthcare, homeland, intelligence, science, space and surface transportation as well. We are a systems integrator. We design systems and install all sorts of different types of robotic and automation systems, as well as doing controls work as well. We also have a service and maintenance organisation so that we can maintain any of the systems that we install. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks. And finally, Neil Sandhu.
Thanks, Gail. Hi, everybody. Neil Sandhu here. I'm the current product manager at SICK UK. SICK, if you are not aware, is a German automation company that does everything from, and I have props, little photoelectric sensors to cameras and identification, quality inspection, and safety, machinery safety systems. So I'm also the current chair of the UK IVA, the UK Industrial Vision Association. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, and look forward to speaking to you on all these topics about end of line. Cheers.
Thank you very much. I've just realised that my first faux pas is I didn't actually introduce myself. So my name's Gail Hunt, and I'm editor of Machinery Update, which is the PPMA's magazine designed for the end user market. And so we cover all of these technologies that we're going to be talking about today. So before we start listening to all these experts that we've got assembled, I'd just like to quickly cover what we're defining as end-of-line solutions, because it covers so many technologies. So we're going from case packers, conveyors, palletizers, which obviously can be robotic or otherwise. We're also talking about pallet dispensers, wrappers, shrinks, strapping, stretch wrapping, kit to move pallets, again, which can be forklifts or robotic options more and more these days. So if you feel throughout this seminar that the technology that you're particularly interested in is not being covered, then do get in touch at the end via the BARA website, and someone will come back to you afterwards if you think, oh, actually, I tuned in for this and it wasn't answered. That will be no problem. So first of all, we're going to crack on with, and I'm going to ask all of the panel about this question. So, and the basic question is, why do we need automated end-of-line solutions at all? So, George, let's come to you first.
Okay. There's a lot of reasons why end-of-line is so important. I have been in numerous factories, some of which are large companies, and you see loads of people huddled around pallets that are stacking boxes or bags or whatever. And when you stand back and look at it and you think, man, I'd hate to do the health and safety risk assessment for that one. The manual handling guidance clearly is fallen short of the mark on this one. It's not about necessarily the weight of the item that they're moving or palletizing. It's also about how often they have to move that load. So there's a lot to consider as opposed to just that, how far they have to move it. Is there a lot of bending and twisting and lifting and so on and so forth? And a lot of times there's better ways of doing it. When you look at the health and safety executive guidance for manual handling, the first thing it recommends is there any way of automating it? And, I would say that in 9 times out of 10, the answer to that is yes. It's whether there is the appetite to do the automation. What a lot of companies will find when they start down the path of automation is once they get the first one in and it's success, they find other areas of the business to automate. And it's not always about headcount reduction. It's about improving the health and well-being of the employees. It's about making sure that they have the best possible working life that they can.
Excellent, thank you. I'm now going to ask Andrew and Neil, because we're looking at the production line efficiencies, maybe.
Okay, well, I was going to just add quickly to what George was saying mentioned about headcounts, and that used to be important, and it probably still is, but nowadays it's actually finding people is the more critical thing. So it's not reducing headcount, it's getting that solution which you can't get in the market. And then the next bit, we're moving on to sort of cycle time and efficiencies. Yes, Gail?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I think people talk about cycle time and throughput, and some may feel it's the same thing, but throughput is all about producing the right product at the right quality consistently. So your product at the end of the line is what's got to go out the door. We don't get no benefit in making scrap, for example.
Yeah.
So therefore, maybe some in line. I think we'll come on to talk about these things later, and certainly maybe Neil if it's about inspection. But in-line inspection, checking the products right, feeding products to the line on time. We don't want the line stopping because we run out of raw material. So it's all about getting a production line which is running efficiency, not necessarily fast. It's just got to be efficient and get the throughput on a constant level. That would give you the best benefits.
Certainly on that point, if you have almost hand packing on the line, would you still say there's a benefit to having an end of line solution at the end of the line?
Oh yes, without a doubt. I mean, certainly George mentioned that the safety options now, but it's availability of labour. If you've got machinery doing the task, it's got to be consistent, and also being an operative who takes control of running the line as opposed to actually doing the packing is a higher rate job and more interesting. So yeah, benefit for everybody.
So let's talk about efficiencies and throughput with you, Neil.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, just to add to what George and Andrew have been saying, unfortunately in this day and age, we don't need to talk about the past couple of years, with the B word in terms of Brexit and the C word in terms of we all know what, but it has led to a shortfall in available labour, which is what Andrew's just been talking about. But in terms of efficiencies and throughput, it's about costs are going up, unfortunately, and around the world in various areas, the shortages of components and things like that. So anybody producing goods or products needs to make sure, as Andrew said, we're producing efficiency. We're making something correctly. It's going out the door correctly. It's labeled correctly. It's packaged correctly. And so these are all things that could count towards returns and downtime. So having inline inspection and packaging machinery is critical, but also making sure that they're doing the jobs in the right way is also very critical. And unfortunately, we're human, and humans, I'm fallible along with the rest of us. We can make mistakes. So if you can automate something and you can guarantee that the right number of small boxes are in a large box, it's labeled correctly, everything's been made correctly, then you stand a better chance of delivering the right product at the right time to the right customer. And that's hopefully what end of line and everything that we're talking about here will help provide.
I think there's also social distancing sort of benefits as well, aren't there, to, that we've all seen, that if you can get 20 people to work on a line, you don't actually want them all to be standing right next to each other in these COVID times.
That's right. And also having the capability with automation nowadays prevents downtime, and preventative maintenance aspects can help minimize the downtime, the wasted time potentially caused by a machine having to stop or somebody having to go and replace a part or something like that. And so those interactions as well can help be reduced.
Okay, lovely. Dave, I think you wanted to talk about the opportunities for existing customers.
Yeah, so one of the messages I get consistently from the customers that we speak to is it's a lot to do with the workforce they have, the associates that they employ to do the various handling activities. You have consistent messaging around seasonal variation. You get pay fluctuation where staff need to be employed, and there's competition within particular areas, both sectors, but also regionally as well. You've got the retraining costs that are associated, variable throughputs, as well as quality associated handling problems as well. So I get all of these various concerns raised, and then all of that speaks to not only throughput and return on investment as well, but it becomes increasingly difficult then to calculate what some of those theoretical things are, because a lot of the time calculations for investments are based upon standardized work patterns that but very, very few companies can achieve their standardized work throughput. So as a consequence, their investment plan might have a payback in, let's say, 2 years. A lot of people try to get to return on investment within 2 years for them to move it forward. But if they actually look historically at how they've performed, then investment can be up to 20% quicker than that, if not more than that. And as Neil was saying as well just a moment ago, COVID, and having gone through the COVID period that we have had, and the way people have changed their buying habits, the run up to Christmas has exacerbated the situation, even further now. So we've got customers that are asking us to accelerate some of those end of line opportunities that they're considering at the moment.
Okay, interesting. So let's look at in a bit more detail at the absolute technology that can help in this area rather than just a general end of line. So let's start off with palletizers, because I think they're often looked at as a massive bit of kit at the end of the line, but obviously they are getting more and more and more flexible as time goes on, especially with cobot options. So George, let's talk to you first about palletizers and how they contribute to throughput advantages and health and safety, of course, as well.
Yes, absolutely. One of the biggest advantages is obviously you don't have lots of people huddled around pallets when they're stacking boxes or bags. And a lot of people think that just because on a particular line, it is a low throughput in their eyes. But if they have several lines together, we could feed those into a centralized palletizing location. So one palletizer can stack multiple products. For Goodell, we have one in the northeast of England that is palletizing 30 different lines, and it's one gantry robot. There's other solutions that I've sold throughout my career where, for layer palletizers, where it's very, very high speed. I think the fastest I've ever sold into was a pallet a minute. And I don't care what standards you set, that's pretty doggone quick. There's opposite ends of the spectrums, and it's about installing and commissioning the right automation at the right point at the right time.
So there aren't many companies though that do all styles of palletizers at the same time. So how do people decide on who to go to? Maybe come to BARA or
exactly that. There's for anyone who hasn't been on the BARA website, we have an expert advice on there. There's explanations of all the different robot types and so on. And more importantly, call a couple of integrators. Don't just decide I'm going with that particular one just because, I don't know, they have a nice logo or something, or it's a specific type of robot that you're thinking of. There are lots of different styles of robots, from collaborative robots to articulated robots, gantry robots. And if you look at the legislation, anything that has 3 or more axes is technically a robot. So
okay, brilliant, thank you. So Andrew, let's come to you on palletizers.
Okay, I was going to add that not always, although this is about end of line, it's not always about actually at the end of line, because we think of palletizers being put in boxes on a pallet, but certainly some areas we're involved in, and I don't want to be too partisan, but in the pharmaceutical industry, automotive as well, is feeding components onto a line, because the efficiency of a line has to be fed with product. As soon as there's no delivery of product on, it can't be processed, and then the end of line stops. Equally, if the product cannot be taken off the line, that will cause a stoppage. And that's all about the efficiency of the line. So what I call tray handling palletizers, for example, where the product is added to the line, and these would be where the trays of product are fed to the surface and then automatically loaded to the line, and then the next tray comes in. So you don't need a person in attendance to keep feeding the line.
Yeah.
At the other end, it's the reverse. Again, automatic unloading, and then if we are going to boxes or pull into tote boxes, for example, again load into a pallet. But efficiency, and we talk about throughput, it's all about the line flowing, and you can put some help into that. You can put buffer zones in, so there's some compliance if a feeding solution on or off is struggling. But yeah, it's all about getting the right solution. And George and I obviously know each other well from BARA, but all the BARA guys, we're there to promote the industry. We offer all different solutions, as George said. Some solutions would be cobot related, great for apps and applications. Some need traditional gantry robots or 6-axis robots, but we're all here to try and get the industry automated.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And Dave, let me come to you about palletizers.
So from our perspective, I think what we find is that it's very much process and product dependent. We can have a customer that requires the same product at speed. It never changes. It's the same volumetric size and weight, and that speaks to one particular application type. We've got others that have any number of different sized packages or products go down the line, and they're fed into a palletizing solution that's got to cope with any different number of those volumetric sizes, palletizing or going into a stillage, for example. And then you've got different levels of both vision and also controls capabilities required to manage that system when that's on the fly. Other customers would like a system that's capable of running in batches, different products of different sizes as well, or even a mix of products down the same line, and then recognizing what's coming down the line and moving those packages to a different palletizing station, either with individual robots or with a single robot, say a gantry robot, for example, where it's picking and placing potentially layers as well, for example. And that can be, as Andrew has said, and also George, gantry, industrial, or delta robots as well, depending on speeds and package sizes as well.
Okay, so coming on to wrappers, obviously there's all kinds of different wrappers at the end of a line, shrink, stretch, and even strapping, which often get wrapped as well. George, do you have anything to say on these, or?
Yeah, I think it's, as I think we all have seen when we're going around doing factory tours and so on, it always amuses me when you're walking around different plants and again, significant size factories, and you have some poor sod at the end of the line that's running around a pallet with a roll of stretch wrap, and you got to feel for the guy, although he doesn't have to go to the gym afterwards, or she, could be either, of course. The technology is there, and it's not that expensive when you look at the greater scheme of things. If you've invested money in a palletizer, it's while you're making that investment, even if it's a semi-automated wrapping station, put it on.
Yeah,
I know we're all very conscious about our plastic usage, and that's the advantage of using a wrapper, an automated wrapper or semi-automated wrapper, is it will do a pre-stretch on it, so you actually end up using far less plastics than you would if it's some poor sod with a roll of stretch film running around a pallet, because they always put too much on.
yeah,
and that's the beauty of automation in general, is you can tell the automation how much to put on, and it's the same amount every time. And these wrappers, they can put hoods on, they can do all sorts of and manner of things, and with the new materials that are coming out all the time, for me, it's anytime I quote a palletizing solution, it's got a wrapper on it, even if it's down as an option. And when the end customers see how little it actually costs in the greater scheme of things, it's a no-brainer.
yeah.
It really is.
Okay, it's interesting that you're talking about sustainability there as well, that you wouldn't maybe think that end-of-line solutions is going to actually contribute as much as maybe the initial pack choice or whatever that you're wrapping, that it offers benefits of using less materials as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is generally across the board. Dave and I have worked on projects in the past at a different company when we worked together for automotive, where we were automating application of adhesives, and companies would say to us, after they'd implemented it, we've paid for it. It's paid for itself just in the little adhesive that it's wasting.
Yeah.
We've had companies that they'll put too much adhesive down, and then they paid again some poor sod at the end of the line that's wiping off the excess of adhesives. It makes no sense. As Andrew pointed out earlier, don't make waste.
Yeah, and as resources become scarcer and scarcer and more costly,
absolutely,
in all senses, then why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Okay, so Andrew, let's talk about pallet dispensing / movement. So when we've got our beautifully wrapped pallet and it's all been automated and it's sitting there looking gorgeous, and so it then has to move off somewhere. So you can tell us about those, please, why you should have them.
Well, traditionally, moving product from stores to line and line to stores is definitely a manual process. It's a pump truck or a forklift truck. But now, and have been for many years, we've had Agvs with sort of guided vehicles through factories. Gantry systems can, I know George would be keen for me to mention that, but they can pick and place product down down from one end of the factory to the other. It's all doable. Probably more recently, AMRs, so offer a flexible solution, because they will collect the product maybe from if you've got your pallet elevated, then they can come underneath the pallet and then collect it, take it away to the stores, or maybe some different drop-off points as well. That's not uncommon. So automating that is because you save the people walking around. Now, as George said, it's not good for their maybe their fitness, but certainly is a time saver. We talked about on the production line, you don't want your line stopping because of unwarranted stoppages, but people also produce unwarranted stoppages because they stop the coffee machine. They talk about last night's football. These are not efficiencies. So AMRs are certainly give that flexible option nowadays. There's a question.
One of our participants has asked, are you meaning / talking about Agvs or AMRs? Talk about the difference between the two.
Okay, well, it's not my total expert line, so I might get some help here, but my view is Agvs are guided vehicles. So typically the vehicle will have a guide strip in the floor and follow that line, whereas an AMR will use its own navigation system to find its way around the factory, and the benefit there is it will, if there's something in the way, it can often find its own route. Whereas if it's on following a fixed path, then if there's something put in the way, it's stuck.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, if I've got it wrong.
No, I liked it. So George, would you like to come back, since Andrew was so kind there to mention the gantry option?
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of people will neglect is how to put the empty pallet into the palletizing station. And it doesn't matter whether it is a wooden pallet, plastic pallet, stillage, it doesn't matter. There are lots of automated solutions to do that. There are several companies around the world that will provide the magazine so that they can auto dispense into the cell. Having the robot do it is another option. It's not necessarily the most efficient way. It's better than getting a human to put one in. However, that is a very valid option, is to do that. But as Andrew very kindly said, the gantry solution is one that will also move the pallets around. Whether it's full pallets or stacks of totes or whatever. That's one way of moving it, and the AMR Agvs. Okay,
thank you. Just a point here that someone has reminded me of is that BARA are actually running an AMR AGV roundtable this October. So if you want some more detail on that, look out for that event, which will be running at the end of this year. Just, I forgot the advert. Amazing. So I'm going to switch it up slightly now, because I feel that Neil's been sat there and we haven't heard from him for ages. So I'm going to just say now, I'm going to move around a bit, and let's look about what I'd call the enabling technologies for a lot of end-of-line solutions, including vision and safety aspects, which of course Neil and SICK UK are experts on.
Thanks, Gail. Yes, beautifully linked as well. Yeah, it's really, really good to hear from Andrew, George, and Dave regarding the different technologies regarding palletizing, wrapping, and movement of the product. If I can take us just a couple of steps prior to end of line, and we think about initially, let's say, machine vision. Machine vision systems, and obviously being in the UK Industrial Vision Association, which is all part of the wonderful Print and Packaging Machinery Association, machine vision really can assist here and provide added benefit to inspection, and guaranteeing that before we start to get towards end of line, whatever we're manufacturing or making has been inspected to a high level, to a high degree. We then think about where machine vision goes towards in terms of the packaging, and checking that, perhaps assisting with robot guidance, because robots actually are very, very good, but they also do need their eyes and the capability to see what they're doing. And machine vision really can help in that respect, in terms of analyzing an environment to a high degree of accuracy, to make sure that if a robot perhaps is assisting with the packaging or palletizing or depalletizing, if we go further back, then those sorts of machine vision really can come to its own then. And the technology nowadays has advanced so much in terms of looking at three-dimensional capabilities. So we're not just talking about looking in 2 dimensions, we're talking about 3 dimensions. So you think about quality inspection, packaging inspection, palletizing, etc., etc. Now, if we think about machinery safety, we do, and it's sometimes a bit of a, oh no, we have to talk about safety, but we have to consider that most things, robots, end-of-line machinery, are effectively machines. So if there is going to be any human interaction, then the right risk assessment, as I think Dave or George mentioned previously, would need to be carried out, in terms of, if I've got human beings, and we want to look after human beings, quite obviously, in the area, we can provide now in the safety industry, including us at SICK UK, have plenty full of qualified people to analyze an area and make sure the right levels of safety are provided for in the machinery safety aspects. And in case of interactions between humans and this machinery, it will only, let's say, reduce maybe perhaps the speed of operation, if we think about a robot, to a level that then is sufficient not to endanger anybody. And so in combination, safety and vision really does go hand in hand with robotics and packaging and end-of-line equipment, to make everything work as a team.
Okay, brilliant. So, I mean, do you think this is why integrators are key, maybe in this sort of area, if you're combining so many different technologies? And forgive me, Neil, but vision can be quite tricky to get to grips with, like any technologies that we're talking about. So the role of integrators may be key in that area.
Absolutely, integrators are key, but also I will say machine vision and machinery safety is becoming more accessible. You know, we've recently done an article in the UK over here about out-of-the-box vision solutions. So you don't need to be a vision expert or, you know, some kind of wizard to configure and set up and deploy a machine vision system. You know, I can give examples from SICK, for example, where, you know, automated vision system that's out of the box is looking for what they call the pockets in the pallet. So in case of an automated vehicle wanting to go and move that pallet, vision is there and the solutions are out there that can be literally bolted on to say, okay, I find the area that I need to pick up that pallet accurately, and safely and move it to the next position in an accurate and safe way, then machine vision can help. And integrators do have their place in terms of combining the technologies from, you know, all vision companies, safety companies, end-of-line machinery providers, to make sure that the complete solution is delivered to the end customer in a nice package, and they can have confidence that the end-of-line solution will work to their requirements.
Excellent. I mean, I think also talking to the roboty people, the controllers have obviously got much more simpler. You know, you don't have to have a degree in something necessarily to now control or program your robots for use. Is that a true statement? Or, I mean, I do write about how simple programming robots has become. Let me talk to Andrew about that, because I think a lot of your universal robots are obviously much easier to program than they ever were.
Certainly, I think, well, the universal robots have sort of led the way with cobots in recent years, and now the availability of a range of cobots is coming to the fore. And yeah, in the early days, there was 3 aspects of the cobot which was attractive. One was you could pick it up and move it to another position, so flexibility in the factory.
Yeah.
The safety, and Neil mentioned about safety. You know, cobots designed that. I mean, they're working in lower payload areas, but they're designed that they would detect collision, or if you put a scanner on, for example, then it can slow it down. So it's a safe environment. But the key, I always felt, is the ease of use. They are designed to be taught by non-robot programmers.
Yeah.
It's very much teach, drag, pick and drop solutions. But so that they're great in the right applications.
Yeah.
And so also end-of-line palletizing you can use a cobot for. But I think the key, and I think George and I were talking about this the other day, that it's all about specifying the project. If we often go into companies and they don't really know what they want, and therefore it's difficult to deliver what they want if they don't know. It's key to specify what they're looking for, what sort of payback they're looking for. And then there is a whole host of solutions, which could be gantry robots, traditional robots, AMRs, cobots. It's all about knowing what you want and then getting the right specification.
Sure, because even traditional robots now are easier, aren't they? They have got a lot easier. I talked to George about that than it used to be back in the day. With the early adopters had a lot to deal with, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's also very fair to say that if you went back 20, 25 years ago, the robots moved at half the speed and they cost twice as much as they do now.
Yeah.
I don't think that there are many bad robots on the market. I think that is a fairly safe thing to say. There are some who are better than others, admittedly. And again, it's about finding the right product for the application. It's not always going to be one or the other. There's applications where I would look at it and say, you know what, this is an articulated robot all day. It is almost pointless me quoting this. And there are other times that, yep, that's a gantry. That's 100% a gantry, or that's a layer palletizer. Neither an articulated robot or a gantry is going to meet those speeds that you require. So that's a layer palletizer. So again, it's about balancing everything. And yes, everything is becoming much, much easier. There's so many graphical user interfaces, or GUIs as we call them, available now that just make life easier. It is, you want to change the stack pattern? Okay, well, you move it on the HMI touchscreen. Simples.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, let's talk about typical returns on investment, because everyone wants to save time, save money, make their lives easier. So let's hear about Andrew, because I think you want to talk about the returns you can get from palletizers and AMRs, indeed, in this regard. Is this true?
Partly. I think return on investment is so difficult to say, because accountants want 2 years if you're lucky. And I think it all really depends on what your life expectation is of the equipment you need or being supplied, what the actual life expectation of that product and that line is, because nowadays we're very keen to not waste, and if you can refurbish a line to convert it over to a new product or a variant of a product, that's a much better use of materials. So return on investment, I know people want less than a year sometimes. I'd say typically it's sort of 3 years, but you could be 5 years. But there's also, I think, some of the, when you're really looking at return on investments, you can't always look at the hard production facts. There are sometimes sort of softer numbers. Enjoyment of the work for the actual people working for your company. So staff retention, there's a big cost on recruiting people. If you can keep your staff by investing in machinery, which makes the whole environment better, you retain people. That's a soft cost. Safety, and George mentioned about end-of-line palletizing, people manually handling. There's the safety cost of people getting injured, but there's potentially a safety cost of people actually taking you to court. So yes, some of the soft, maybe that's a bit tough, but there are softer costs which don't always get considered by the actual when you're looking at the return on investment. So I can't give a magic number on return on investment. It's all about application, what equipment you need, how long you need it to last.
And maybe using robots will, attract the Xbox generation more into engineering than and younger people who don't just see, it all being a bit dull, and I'll go and work in automotive or Formula One or whatever.
Yeah, we've RAR. Well, we don't actually do integration, but we do tech support, we do training, and the team that do that for us are all recruited from university, or sometimes we've taken them in as interns. Then we let them go back to university for their last year, and then we bring them back, and we've got 2 or 3 guys currently who've come from that route. And you're right, it's attractive, and they are the gamers who they know the technology, they understand the technology.
Yeah. They're not frightened of it either, are they?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to come on to a question from one of our participants. Terry Holland this is a question to all panelists. So I'm going to come to you first, Dave. So there's a poison chalice for you. How are you managing part supply to build the equipment? There are currently high lead times, particularly for electronic components, i.e. inverters, PLCs, components, this kind of thing. How are you coping with that?
Managing is probably a strong word. It's tolerating, really.
Okay.
We are in a position where it's very difficult to affect how long things are going to take. Even specifying different pieces of equipment doesn't really affect the lead times at the moment. But in terms of the suppliers and the partners, technology partners that we have that supply PLCs, for example, what we're being told is that we should be back on stream. So the new factory is starting to produce now. The one that burnt down, that's now started coming back online. It's looking like it'll be back up to its full production schedule by the middle of the year. Probably by the end of the year, we'll be returning towards normal lead times as they work their way through the backlog, for example. But there's not a lot as an integrator that anyone can do that can affect that. In truth, we're actually seeing OEMs reducing the specifications. So automotives, for example, automotive OEMs are reducing the spec capabilities of the products that they're selling to match the volume of semiconductors that they're getting in at the moment. And there's the possibility of retrofitting some of that capability perhaps later on. So as I say, it's very difficult to manage something that you have control over. It's about being pragmatic in terms of the supply and what you're specifying, and being clear with a customer in terms of expectation as well.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Neil, how are you finding things in this area?
Challenging, to say the least, but as I think everybody would probably subscribe to. And listen, as more of a component supplier than maybe some of the other guys on this call, yes, it can be and has been quite frustrating at times. But we are. I like what Dave said there. It's about tolerating rather than managing, because very similar here, but by a combination of factors, prioritization, being in constant contact with the customers to make sure that, as David said, expectation levels, and perhaps making sure that we can achieve deliveries where needed, and production can be completed for certain areas, making sure we're working in partnership with our customers. In some areas, we're actually doing a little bit of redesigning, so we can still achieve the same functionality, but perhaps without using a certain component to get over it that way. So we're managing it by prioritization, constant feedback with our suppliers and with our customers, and making sure that we are delivering where possible the solutions that are needed. Yeah, so it is. We're not at the end of it yet, as David said, but we are hopefully now seeing where the end of the tunnel is, and hopefully we will get to that point at some point later this year.
Okay, well, so we've heard a lot from George and Andrew, so I'm gonna leave. I know they've got all the parts they need. That's all good. But I'm now going to ask George actually about what role should simulation software use when deploying end-of-line solutions, and this is from Steve Morris, who I think I know. I do know Steve. Yes. Did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it plays a big role in everything that we do, especially some of the software packages that we use for our CAD design. We can simulate to make sure that there's no crashes and to make sure that the product flows the way we think it's going to flow. It helps tremendously when we're designing grippers to make sure that it's going to do what we think it's going to do. There's nothing like when you hit a small snag that's created by the laws of physics that you didn't anticipate. You just have to make sure that everything works, and that's where the simulation software comes into its own. It's also a very, very powerful sales tool. A picture may paint 1,000 words, but the picture doesn't beat a movie. If you can show an AVI to someone that describes and shows exactly how that process that you're pitching for is going to work, that speaks volumes. Absolutely speaks volumes.
Yeah, no, I can see that. So I'm going to I'll leave the other questions for now, and I'm just going to come back to our discussion.
Gail, could I just to add to a couple of the
Yes, of course, carry on.
Okay, to link them together. So we talked earlier about robots and the ability to program those, whether it be through offline robot programming or through Pendant and so on. As that's developed and improved, that speaks to some of what you're talking to in terms of simulation. As the technology is improved, you've got simulation tools that we use, for example, like Process Simulate, and that then goes further down those process steps towards virtual commissioning and emulation as well, where you're not just talking about the robot itself, you're talking about within the system and the system's capability as a whole. And this, as a consequence, then enables you to virtually commission that complete system as well. Yeah. So when the system is installed, what you're installing is a system that doesn't need to be debugged online, or the error codes are resolved, or the throughput expectations have been proven as well. And the time that you spend on site as a consequence is half, potentially 20% of the time that you could originally be there debugging and running up a system as well. So the point as well that George is making around that as a sales tool, it becomes a sales tool. We not only use it as a sales tool, but it adds value to the customer as well. What he buys, what that customer buys is, as a consequence, cheaper and more reliable as a consequence, because it's demonstrably proven as a system.
So it's taking any risk out from that point of view.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Right, so I mean, honestly, I don't know why anyone isn't just rushing out to buy an end-of-line solution right now, but just in case they're not and they need more convincing. So what are the common barriers you all come up against when trying to persuade companies to adopt end-of-line equipment? And I'm assuming, I'll just put it out there, probably cost is big, especially in industries with low margins like food processing. So let's come to Andrew first on this. And what are the barriers you find most common?
Well, space can be an issue.
Yeah.
I think probably that's where actually cobots do come in, because some of the guarding requirements are less intrusive. But then there's the use of vertical space is normally available. It's floor spaces are a problem. So again, gantries or stacking systems obviously come into play. And then the other potential barriers I think is we've sort of touched on this about the availability of integration companies. There's the demand in UK for automation is growing, and that, I think part of that is because there's fewer people available, so companies are being forced into automation. And as David particularly mentioned about and Neil about the simulation, that the benefit is if the integrators spend less time with the installation, that does free them up a bit. So I think that's all good, but I think the demand on integrators is higher than the availability at the moment.
Sure.
They're all reasons for a cause concern. But I think my last thing is, I think the management of companies need to be brave. It's easy to carry on doing what you're doing, but if that labour pool is not available, you need to be brave to actually embrace automation.
Sure. Okay, so George, what would you say on this, that you aren't selling a system every day?
It'd be nice if we were selling a system every day. I think Andrew has summed it up very strongly. There are several barriers that we all have, and courage is absolutely top of the tree in my book. There are a lot of companies that I've spoken to throughout my career where they want to do it, they're just afraid to take the first step. And of course, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And there has to be that little bit of courage to say, you know what, let's start small. Let's do something. Let's not just wait and see what happens. Let's do something. Maybe your first endeavor into automation is a semi-automated pallet wrapper. Hey, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's, I don't know, let's put a single AGV in it and replace one of the forklifts that are coming to the end of its life. That's another good way to start. Start small, build from there. Get your confidence up.
Okay, brilliant. Dave, what about you?
Sorry, so I was actually just reading a couple of the questions that they've just popped up. I've discovered that there's something flashing on my screen, and I clicked it and was reading a question from one of the anonymous attendees with centralized palletizers.
Yes.
How can customers be more confident about negating the risk of a single point of failure?
Yes.
So I was thinking about an answer to that question.
Okay, well, let me ask it properly, and then you can crack on. So somebody has asked, which I was looking at earlier myself actually. So if you're going to have a centralized palletizer, like George was saying, that handles 30 different lines, how can a customer be confident when negating the risk of this single point of failure? So if that palletizer goes down, is that all 30 lines going down with all kinds of products falling off a line or lines having to stop? How can you negate that?
So what a good integrator should be telling you as a customer is that there will be PPMs that are associated. There's a certain level of maintenance associated with a single point of failure piece of equipment, and there always needs to be. If there is going to be a single point of failure, then you need another manual solution as well. So you need a takeout option potentially in the event of catastrophic failure for something that you have been unable to predict as well. Then you've got, like I say, predictive failure management as well. So there's various things that you can do, Internet of Things, Industry 4 opportunities to look at how the system is performing, either in terms of heat or vibration as well, if it's doing things that are particularly unusual within its normal running cycles and so on. So you can do some things to manage those, but equally the integrator should be recommending a piece of equipment that has some solid statistics around it in terms of its mean time to repair, mean time to failure, and so on, so that you can allow for so you can inform the customer about what the risks are and how those can be managed as the end user of that particular piece of equipment. You cannot completely negate what's going to happen in terms of catastrophic failure. But to be fair, most systems now, I'd say the vast majority, are so reliable that it would be as a result of poor PPMs really that causes the problem, or misuse it in some way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Of course, you know, if people don't turn up for work, that's also an issue. If they're working at the end of a line, or if they've been pinged on a COVID app or whatever, that can also be an issue, can't it? George, I think you wanted to talk about training and skill sets as maybe a barrier to adoption of end-of-line systems.
Yeah, there's a common misconception. I think we've covered it quite well. In fact, that you have to be a rocket scientist or something similar to program robots. And as we have already alluded to, that is definitely not the case anymore. They are becoming more and more simple, with every step that we take further down the road. I know when I first started programming robots, they're very different to what they are now. It was almost a case of writing the syntax direct, and it's not like that anymore. Now it's effectively drive it to the position, point and shoot. There's a little bit more black magic that goes on into it, and anyone that's spoken at length to me will know that I will say that almost anyone can program a robot, but there's a big difference between that and a robot programmer. You approach things very differently.
Yeah.
But just about anybody can be taught how to touch up positions and make some minor changes. Would I say that you would take someone, Joe off the street and get them to, in a couple of weeks to be able to get a robot out of a box and integrate it? No, you're going to need some deeper training than that. But could I take Joe off the street and get him to touch up a program? Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And you could probably do that in a day for basic stuff.
Sure. Okay. So I'm just after this one. So okay, I've got one more question, and then we're going to wrap up because we're down to our final moments. So it's saying here that no one has mentioned the fact that if you automate the end of line, any issues that were previously caught by operators are now boxed, wrapped, and on their way to the customer. Vision systems and other automated checkups stream and at the end of line become crucial, it's saying.
Do you want me to come in there, Gail?
Obviously, yes. I think inspection does become crucial, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Neil?
and I think I mentioned this a few minutes ago when I said let's take a few steps back from end of line. Vision inspection or quality inspection in general obviously is of paramount importance and is crucial ahead of packaging up whatever you're manufacturing or making. And we would always advocate in the machine vision situation, you always try and find the earliest part in the process where you can possibly carry out an inspection that's valid, because then if you spot it at that point, as the gentleman who asked the question quite rightly says, you stop it from something that perhaps is not as well made as it should be or is incorrect from going further down the line, being added value to, and then being packed and sent off. So yes, it's absolutely vital, I would say.
Okay, brilliant. Well, all I've got to do is say thank you to everybody. I've got a new message. I better just quick. Oh yeah, yes, it's here. I'm being told to say thank you and wrap this up. So thank you very much for our panel. Thank you to everyone who's attended. Just on housekeeping, visit the BARA website if you need to have any more information. That's bara.org.uk. In terms of the wider technology such as case packers or stretch wrappers or whatever, you can also go to ppma.co.uk for all of those suppliers. And you can also get more questions answered from that website. Finally, I'd ask you to fill in the survey at the end that's going to pop up any moment, just so that will help us plan future events. But again, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.